MVP.
Rangers do every day. It's always been that way for me. Always been a get better mentality every day, grow every day, be a better leader every day, be a better quarterback every day. And when that wrench do, I don't plan on missing no payments. So.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 3 in the Keystone, episode 73. The Steiner brothers back at it, myself and Al Ryan.
Don't call me Rick.
The dog-faced gremlin himself. Chris Guest still on maternity leave or paternity leave.
Yeah.
He is not gone, folks. He has said he will be back in the next few weeks. So we're hoping to have him back before the new year. Hopefully he's just not changing too many diapers at this point in time.
And for you wrestling fans, it's going to be a bigger return than that of CM Punk at Survivor Series.
Shout out to Seth Rollins and company. Episode 73 tonight. Al, we mentioned a few weeks ago, the 70s are really, really tough. Couldn't come up with almost anybody. Had to go with former Eagles offensive guard Shawn Andrews.
Oh, boy, that's tough then. I didn't look anybody up, but that's horrible.
It was a reach, a big-time reach. But
73. Yeah, I got nothing.
The real sponsor for tonight's episode is SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app for your best deals on events in your area, sports, concerts, comedy shows, you name it. SeatGeek has you covered. I told you last week that we were getting a new promo code. We do have it this week. It is 3 Keystone. So again, the number 3 Keystone. And that gets you $20 off your first purchase. So go on to the SeatGeek app and make sure you use the code 3 Keystone for your first purchase. How was your Thanksgiving?
Beautiful. Beautiful turkey. Listen, I've mastered the turkey at this point.
You white meat or dark meat?
So I've always been a neither one is fine guy. After this past year, the dark meat was so much tastier than the white meat. And I don't know if that had to do with how I cooked it. I did a dry brine this year, which is where you just cover the bird in salt the day before and put it in the fridge overnight. And then you pull it out. You don't dust any of it off. You just cook it with that like that. And you do the compound butter and everything else. And it came out fantastic.
You get nervous like changing the recipes and stuff like that?
A little bit. I was a little nervous this year. I was really nervous last year, but now I'm super confident going into next year. Like now it's like I get it. I can trust the recipe, trust the internal temp. I'm good to go, man.
What do you do with the giblets?
You take them out, you make a gravy with them. So I made a homemade gravy with them this year too.
Dude, you're really going Betty Crocker on us, dude.
Yeah, dude. Give me a little more respect than that. How about a little Guy Fieri?
Which one? Any of your kids giving you any criticism on the meal or no?
No, well, I cook 3-4 nights a week anywhere. My kids, Avery especially, is always like, what's this? I don't like this. I make the same friggin' things every week, and every week she doesn't like them. So no, I got some good feedback.
That's a tough ask.
Yeah, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good, man. We bounced around. Obviously, we had the baby, so my wife was a little hesitant about bringing him certain places with sicknesses and all that, but he survived. He's doing all right. He only had one minor meltdown, which is a victory, I would say.
How many places did you end up going?
Just 2. We go to my wife's parents for lunch at like 12 o'clock, and then we go over to my aunt's, and we go over there probably like 4:30, 5 o'clock-ish.
Okay, that's not bad.
No, so then there's a little room in between to come home and.
Well, the other thing is with the newborn, when you go to place, everybody wants to hold him anyway. So it's like you don't even have to parent.
Yeah, but you still like for the first time it was there, it was like I was worried about him crying, throwing a fit. So even if other people were holding him, I still had my eyes on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. You'll grow out of it.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to. I know I will, but I was actually more worried about my wife looking at me, not looking at him.
I got you.
That makes any sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You're not paying enough attention.
Yeah. You're just sitting there watching football, and I've got to watch the baby all day.
Yeah, just imagine if they were playing that on Boise State's field. You would have really not been paying any attention to the baby.
We're in Nebraska. But speaking of football, The Eagles do it again. It's like Groundhog Day on this podcast.
Yep.
They beat the Buffalo Bills 37-34 in overtime. They moved to 10-1 on the season. This is the fourth straight week that they've been outgained and they've won. And they're not just getting outgained by small amounts. On average, they are being outgained by 109 yards per game. It's unprecedented what this team has been able to do. And I can't wrap my brain around, are they lucky? Are they just that good? Are they clutch? Like, what is going on with this football team right now? Can you give me an explanation?
So I think when you talk about clutch versus lucky, I think that when you look at this season and especially the last 4 games, of course has to be some elements of luck involved when you're going to win games where you're getting outgained that much in the yardage category. But this team is more often finding ways to win rather than being handed games. They're capitalizing on mistakes. They're not winning the turnover battle. They're not winning the yards to game battle, but they're capitalizing when they do have the ball in those situations that would make you quote unquote clutch. The third quarter and the fourth quarter, the second half, coming back down 10 in the fourth against Buffalo, and then coming back again down 3 with 2 minutes to go, and then down 3 in overtime is not lucky. You don't get lucky doing that 3 times in a row. That's the clutch gene. And this team has it. This team is battle tested. They're playing the best teams in football, and it shows that they don't melt when the situation gets too hot, where some teams, the Dallas Cowboys, might.
Shots fired. I agree with you because I thought about this. I kept changing my tune. First, I thought it was luck. Then I thought it was clutch. Then I went back to luck, and then I went to clutch, and I've come up with this conclusion. It can be both. There's no doubt in my mind that this team has the confidence, the composure, the collectiveness that when it comes down to crunch time, they know they're going to win the game. They know they're going to come up with big plays. I don't know if you saw the clip of Brandon Graham.
Before overtime?
Not even before overtime. In overtime, the Buffalo's kicking the field goal, and literally the snap is about to happen, and he goes, y'all about to lose the game. He's like, we got Jalen Hurts.
Oh, I did see that.
And like he knew that the 3 points was not going to be enough, and that this team has done it time and time again, come down to win the game. So I wouldn't say that they are a lucky team. I think they are a clutch team, and they have that gene. But I do think they are lucky to be 10-1.
So I don't disagree with that because of the situations that they put themselves in. You're a golfer, though. Every putt you've ever hit outside of 5 feet has an element of luck. Every single one, no matter how hot your putter is, no matter how well you're rolling the ball.
That's just because you play them public greens, dude, that bounce around all the time. You play them pretty bluebell greens, dude, you got to hit it in the right spot. It goes in the hole.
I've seen those videos where the guys are rolling the balls down the stimp and they're going this way, that way, the other way. There has to be at least a 1% element of luck to hitting those putts, and there has to be at least 1% element of luck to win these games. Sure. And in some cases, it's more than that.
I mean, think about just certain plays. The Valdez-Scantling drop.
Right.
There's no skill in that. That's luck. The Dallas getting stopped on the 1-inch line, a little bit of luck on that, right? I mean, it's a nice play, but the tight end gets stopped on the goal line. Jake Elliott, 59 yards in the pouring rain. There's a little bit of luck in that. Even the Washington game earlier this year, the first one at home, Washington scores late in the game they were down 7. They could have very well gone for 2 and won the game, and they decided to kick the extra point. Eagles win in overtime. They're not a lucky team, but they're lucky to be 10-1. They probably should be more around 8-3ish based on, again, the way that they've played in some of these games.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, I get what you're saying. Some of these plays aren't necessarily coin flip plays, like the Valdez-Scantling. How many times does he catch that ball out of?
That's the most egregious one.
Right. So I get what you're saying there, but it's not to say that they potentially wouldn't have come back in some of those scenarios. I don't know about all of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, Jalen Hurts has just shown that he has the ability and the moxie to make those things happen when it's time to do it, and he's done it. It's been 2 years now. He's done it. It's not a surprise. With that said, he is now the favorite for the MVP award, which is crazy to me. And Chris did quote after the game. I called him a bitch, Jalen Hurts. And we can talk about that a little bit later. And Chris just said, well, he just won the MVP award. And he very well might have, but it's probably the worst MVP award in the last 20 years in regards to the NFL.
Well, yeah, I mean, his competition is Lamar.
I'm pulling up the odds now.
So his competition is Lamar. Mahomes has to be in it despite, his more down to earth numbers this year.
So Hurts is plus 150.
Hold on, let me guess it. So it's got to be him. It's got to be Lamar. It's got to be Mahomes. I would imagine Jared Goff is up there, and I would imagine Tua is still up there.
So okay, so Mahomes is plus 350. He's in second. Lamar is 6-1, but there's somebody tied at 6-1 that you haven't named yet. Tua is 8-1.
Is it Christian?
McCaffrey? No, McCaffrey's 30-1 at this point.
Is it Dak?
Dak Prescott.
Yeah. Okay.
Dak's had a really good year.
He's had a really good year. Beating up. He's doing what we criticized the Eagles of doing last year. He is absolutely destroying the cupcakes.
Yeah, that's what Dallas does not have a win over a team over 500, but they are pounding teams. And I have here the Eagles' point differential this year is plus 64. Dallas is at plus 162.
Yeah, what's their strength of schedule comparison though?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Well, I know you don't have this, but what would even the strength of schedule comparison in the wins be? Right, Dallas has beaten absolutely nobody this year.
Correct.
And even though we've squeaked out these wins, when you're beating good teams, squeaking by is always going to be better for a team in the long run than embarrassing the cupcakes like we did last year.
Why do you say that?
It's the Gonzaga rule, dude. There's a reason why one-loss Gonzaga never wins the national title, but battle-tested power conference teams with like 7 or 8 losses do. You put yourself in these positions early on where you're feeling the discomfort and you're feeling the pain and the agony of going through some of these tough wins and even these tough losses. And now you're in a position when it comes time where the rubber meets the road, as Chris likes to say, you've been there. You know how to turn it up. Whereas if you're just playing crap teams all year long and just taking advantage of them, you really don't have that second gear because you've never had to kick into it. It's the criticism that I gave the Eagles all year last year that Chris didn't want to hear. And if you want to be honest, it kind of happened in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. The problem is the Eagles are not blowing out the crappy teams this year either.
I understand that, but I'd rather see these close games and also from a fan standpoint. I mean, the games this year are so much better to watch and so much more memorable. I don't remember like 8 of those wins last season. I really don't remember like 12 of them, if I'm being honest.
To your point, I was curious. So I went back to last year's schedule and I said, I wonder what the Eagles' point differential was at this point last year, because again, from just a broad perspective, it felt like they were burying all of these cupcakes that we were talking about. At this point last year, believe it or not, Al, the point differential was only plus 80.
Still a lot. Still double.
No, we're plus 64 right now.
Oh, okay.
And then towards the end of the year, they ran off some wins against Tennessee and the Giants. And to your point, I don't remember them playing Tennessee at all last year.
No, come on, man. Not at all. But these are confidence building battles, dude. That's what these are. These help these guys prepare because you're having to play at a high intensity every week. And I don't know if you want to take the conversation here just yet, but thinking about the schedule today, I was talking to a buddy at work. I'm a little worried about the end of the season and the way the schedule lines up with Giants, Cardinals, Giants, and potentially a bye. That's 4 weeks of non-competitive football before you get to the playoffs if you're the Philadelphia Eagles.
But it was like that last year, too. If you remember, that was when Hurts got hurt and they played Chicago. Well, they got hurt against Chicago. Then they lost to the Saints. And they played somebody in the final. Giants. And they had the Dallas game as well. Again, I guess you're playing competitive. You're playing good football teams. They just didn't have their starting quarterback at that point in time, the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a small worry, but it's something that I think about in the back of my head when, I don't know, when you're trying to think of everything that could go wrong. That's one of the things I think that could potentially set them back.
Yeah, I do want to get into this week's game, and we could talk a little bit more about the picture of the NFC. But the one thing I wanted to talk about going back to the last game is you asked the question, how many quarterbacks would you take in a 2-minute drill to win the game above Jalen Hurts? And I thought long and hard about it, and I really wish Chris was on the podcast for the answer I'm about to give him right now. But for me, as of right now, I have 3.
Over Hurts?
I have 3 over Jalen Hurts.
All right.
No,
If you say Herbert, drop that beat.
I don't have Herbert. You can't put Herbert on there because he has proven time and time again that he can't get it done in LA.
He's awful.
So Patrick Mahomes is number one. He's done it a million times. He's the best quarterback in the world. I'm going to take him over Jalen Hurts to win me a game.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to still take Joe Burrow. I know it's been an iffy year for Joe, but he's also shown the ability to win big games. He's going into Kansas City in the AFC Championship game and won. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. To me, he's still Joe Cool. He's got a national title on his resume. I'm still taking Joe Burrow over him.
Can we try to dial guest in just have you repeat that? He would have lost his mind.
He loves Burrow. He's going to lose his mind over this one. Josh Allen's number 3. Josh Allen's number 3. Listen, you could say what you want. Josh Allen was the better quarterback on Sunday. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. He was tremendous for what he did. And if he played, if you're asking me if I would take Jalen Hurts to lead the Eagles back or Josh Allen to lead the Bills back, I would take Jalen Hurts. But I think if Josh Allen was quarterbacking this Eagles team, he would be in a better spot than Jalen Hurts. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. I just don't agree with it. I think you're disrespecting Jalen Hurts.
Dude, Josh Allen's arm, he was throwing darts all over the football field, and you can argue that he's a better runner than Jalen Hurts.
You could argue it, but I don't necessarily know that I'd agree with you.
And that's fine. It's arguable. I'm not saying it's 100% clear cut. I just was so impressed with what Allen's done, and it got to the point where I looked at that Buffalo team, which honestly we don't get to see a ton of, and it's just a matter of he has one receiver and an offensive scheme that doesn't really seem to fit with what they're doing there. Jalen Hurts has 2 really, really good wide receivers, a tremendous offensive line, and a hell of a lot better running game. And I'm not knocking Jalen. I have him 4th. I just think Josh Allen still has better tools than Jalen at this point in time. And the knock on Josh is that he turns the ball over, which is true. But A, that could be part of the fact that he has a lack of weapons. And B, you can't really make that defense this year because Jalen's turned the ball over just as much as Josh.
Yeah, when I see Jalen Hurts, it's like the Reggie Miller in crunch time. Like, it's like it doesn't matter who else is on the floor. It's just the dude has something in his DNA. I know it's so cliche to say, but he has 4 game-winning drives this year. I mean, every time the Eagles are down in the 4th quarter, he brings them back and wins the game. Yeah, at some point, you have to give some of the credit, the majority of the credit, to the quarterback.
Sure, and that's why I have him 4th. That's not an insult to him. I just
think it is when you're talking about the front runner for MVP of the league this year.
The MVP of the league, we just talked about it. It's a trash year.
But you're also comparing him to a guy, Josh Allen, that his team is what, 6-6?
That's why that's his team. Football of all these sports is a team sport.
I agree with that.
And I don't care. And you said Justin Herbert, and I agree. Herbert doesn't deserve the benefit of that after all these years. But I've also seen Josh Allen take his team down in the AFC. I always forget if it was a divisional or championship game against Kansas City with less than a minute to go. I've seen Josh Allen do it. Let's not pretend like he didn't do it. Josh Allen did it Sunday. He took them down at the end of regulation and gave them a 3-point lead with a 7-minute drive, and then in overtime took them down to get a field goal. So
you're saying in last year's Super Bowl, if that Bradbury play isn't called a hold, you'd rather have Josh Allen on the field for that last drive, potential game-tying or game-winning drive, than Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I'm saying that. I'm not denying that I'm saying that. That's what I'm saying.
That's wild.
Josh Allen with this Eagles team.
Get the intern. We got to clip it.
I have no issue debating that. I was so impressed. His arm strength is so much better than Hurts.
But, dude,
Hurts has the intangibles.
There's intangibles.
But I don't think Josh doesn't have them. Again, I've seen Josh Allen take his team down in crunch time and do the job, and it's an inferior team to what Hurts has.
Here's the problem where I start to not be able to hold up the argument is I just haven't watched enough Josh Allen. So I can't sit here and cite times where maybe he didn't, you know what I mean, where he didn't get the job done. Because I'm sure it's happened. And this year with 6 losses, I'm sure it's happened more than one time.
Whereas with Jalen Hurts, it hasn't happened. He was also 14-2 or 14-3 last year.
That's
14-2 because they had the game that was canceled.
That's all well and good. He has yet to make a Super Bowl.
Sure, I understand that. But again, football is a team sport.
I know. Look, I'm okay with Mahomes. I'm Hurts for me is no lower than number 2. And if you bring the whole team into the equation, they're easily number 1 this year.
That's fine. If you're bringing the whole team into the equation, I think you have to go. I don't think you can go with anybody else other than the Eagles.
Yeah.
They've been the best team in crunch time without question. So if we're talking the entire teams, it's the Eagles for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to touch a little bit. I mentioned my text to Chris earlier. I know the Hurts demeanor thing is not a big deal because this team doesn't really care. It irks me. It irks me to my core that, and it's the same thing. I give Joel Embiid the same right. The fact that he just sits there and stares with this blank look on his face, to me, again, Elliott's kicking this field goal, it's 59-yard field goal to tie the game, and you're sitting there just stone-faced. And we're going to say, oh, he's just locked in and this and that. I get it, but if I'm his teammates, like I would want a little bit more out of my quarterback and my leader. And they're winning games, so he's going to get away with it. But I would wonder if they were 5-6 at this point in time, whether or not that would not be a bigger story.
But see, you took the words out of my mouth. How much of this do you think is scar tissue from Joel Embiid?
Might be.
I think a lot of it reminds you too much of him, because when I see it, I love the focus. It reminds me of I mean, Tom Brady used to pull this shit where he would just
but Tom Brady was sometimes on the sidelines pumping his fist.
Well, he would yell at people, and he would
I'd rather that. Show me something.
What I worry is not the right word. I'm concerned.
I'm not worried about it.
No. But what I'm saying is, I hope he's enjoying the moment, Jalen Hurts, because I think he's almost like in a position like Bryce Harper put so much pressure on himself to bring a title to Philadelphia, and I think Jalen Hurts is in that same boat. But I think where Jalen Hurts is different from Bryce Harper is he doesn't seem to be enjoying any of these victories because he has a greater goal in mind. So I hope for his sake he at least goes home at night and is like a little bit happy, like, because that's going to drive him crazy.
He looks miserable every time they zoom on him. And I saw my Lotta make a comment that, every time the cameras are on him, he just happens to be sitting there, but he's really, when the cameras aren't on him, he's up and dapping people. I think that he's just standing up for his quarterback. Like, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
They never show that. Every time they show him, he's sitting on the bench miserable.
But no, I'm okay with the laser focus. If the teammates ain't saying anything, I'm not saying anything. That's fine.
But like I said, winning cures all, and so it is what it is. It's a non-story at this point in time.
Absolutely.
But this week is the main event for the regular season. San Francisco 49ers come back to town after all the whining that they did after getting their asses beat in the NFC Championship last year, crying about injuries. They didn't have a quarterback, this and that. They come in, and you want to talk. Can we get Chris's soundbite of the disrespect?
We got to get it.
The San Francisco 49ers come into Philadelphia as 3-point favorites on Sunday. I was shocked when I saw the line. I really thought it was going to be something disrespectful. And when I say that, I thought the Eagles were going to be 1-point favorites or it was going to be a pick 'em. Mm-hmm. For it to be San Francisco -3 was shocking to me. Now, they are coming in. They're playing great football. They are a physical team. I do have some extreme worries that we'll get into about this game Sunday, but what were your reactions when you saw the line?
Stunned. We're not the Pittsburgh Steelers of a couple years ago that started out, 10-0, and everybody could see right through them that they were not a legitimate contender. We are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. We're the class of the NFC, definitely. We're the class of the NFL, in my opinion. And as we just talked about not too long ago, they've beaten good teams. Yes, it's looked like it's been a struggle at times, and we have yet to have the game where we put it all together. But let's not forget, there's two teams on the football field. And so for every good play the Eagles make, sometimes there's a good play that the opposition makes. So these one-score games or whatever, they're going to happen when you're playing the best of the best. And that's what's happening. We talked about this 6-game gauntlet since the schedule came out, and we're 3-0 so far. Yep. And we've beaten the world champions at Arrowhead on a Monday night. We've beaten the Buffalo Bills. We've beaten the Dallas Cowboys, our division rival. So for us to be 3-point underdogs at home to anyone outside of maybe a Pro Bowl team is absolutely ludicrous. It's despicable. And I hope a lot of people lose a lot of money this Sunday betting on the 49ers.
I want to touch on what this game actually means in regards to home field advantage and kind of break that down a little bit for you guys. So the Eagles are currently sitting at 10-1, and they're really the only competition. I think it's safe to say we can wipe Detroit off as far as contending for the number 1 seed after laying an egg on Thanksgiving. So we have San Francisco at 8-3 and Dallas at 8-3. The Eagles' remaining schedule is San Francisco this weekend. Then they play at Dallas. Then they have at Seattle, who is a team that's not game that doesn't look as difficult as it did probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Al, they finished with the 3 cupcakes: Giants, Arizona, and the Giants. Dallas, on the other hand, has Seattle on Thursday night at home. Should be a win. They have the Eagles at home the week after. Then they go to Buffalo and to Miami, which will be two very difficult games. And they have Detroit at home and then at Washington. I don't know about you, I don't see Dallas getting out of there without losing 2 more games at a minimum.
Right.
They're definitely not running the table, I don't think.
Right. No, not a shot.
Okay. San Francisco, on the other hand, I think is the team to worry about. Obviously, they come to Philadelphia this weekend. Then they get Seattle at home, which should be a win. They have Arizona on the road, which should be a win. The toughest game they have left is Baltimore at home, which will be a good game, but they'll still be favored in that game.
And on a Monday night at home.
Is that a Monday night? Okay, I did not know that. But they'll still be favored in that game. And then at Washington and the Rams. So the scary thought is, if you're an Eagles fan, is if you lose this game and you get to 2 losses on the season here, there's a very good chance you may have to run the table the rest of the way, because San Francisco would have a tiebreaker at that point in time.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, right? So San Francisco only has 1 conference loss, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the next tiebreaker after head-to-head record.
Yeah, but the head-to-head would be
San Francisco anyway, right?
Yeah, right.
So we got to beat this week's game is infinitely more important than the Dallas game. We can lose the Dallas game and still be in perfectly fine shape for the division and for the number 1 seed. Correct. This game is the game that we have to win, because San Francisco, as you said, is probably a favorite to run the table from here on out, and they would hold the tiebreaker with the head-to-head win.
Correct.
Dallas, meanwhile, has 3 NFC losses, one of them being to the Eagles. So even for them to beat us, they would still need us to lose potentially to Seattle and then to either the Giants or the Cardinals. And I just don't see that happening.
And again, I don't see with Dallas' schedule at Buffalo, who's going to be a desperate team at that point in time, at Miami, who's a tough matchup, and even Detroit at home. Like Dallas, I don't see Dallas running the table. So, so that'll be at least 4 losses, even if Dallas beats the Eagles, which is a broad assumption. And if the Eagles get to 4 losses, then something's gone completely wrong at this point in time. So and then we have bigger worries than that. So this game does have a ton of meaning in regards to where we go at the home field, because again, not only one team gets the bye, that's the new format, and that NFC Championship game, you're going to want it at home. You're not going to want to have to go to San Francisco, assuming that's the way it plays itself out.
Yeah, and look, there's some injury concerns, right? I mean, all of a sudden, Lane's got a groin. All of a sudden, who was it? Singleton that went down, which, I mean, it looks like we're getting some reinforcements. So, I mean, that extra week off is huge. I know I just said earlier that, it's 4 weeks of non-competitive football, but at the end of the day, you're not passing up a bye unless you're potentially the Atlanta Braves.
100%. So I do have some concerns as well. You mentioned Lane Johnson. That's certainly one. My concern for this week, even more so, is you're coming off a very physical game, a game that basically was 5 quarters. And not only do you lose Lane Johnson, you lose Fletcher Cox. And Jalen Carter, I was looking at the snap counts from yesterday's game. Did you look at these?
I saw, him and Davis. Are you going to talk about?
Jalen Carter, 76 snaps, 25 snaps more than his career high. Jordan Davis, 62 snaps. How many do you think he averages for the season?
Around in the 30s.
26.
Yeah.
So these are 2 guys that haven't played that type of workload. And to come off a physical game like that, and a game where, listen, playing in the rain is not easy. It makes it even harder. And I don't know if you saw Jordan Davis trying to track down Josh Allen it was overtime or late in the 4th quarter, but that boy was moving.
Oh yeah, he was with a big hog molly just running around there, slipping and sliding on the field. But let me say this: it's encouraging that he played that much, because we know he's had weight issues. Nick Sirianni talked about it yesterday at his press conference that the coaching staff and his teammates have been kind of staying on top of him about his weight and telling him you have to get in better shape. And by all accounts, Sirianni said he's really taking that seriously. And for him to play that many snaps, I mean, his fitness has to be somewhat there. They have to be able to trust him if they're going to put him in for 60 snaps. So he's got to be getting that fitness up.
Oh, I don't think it's an issue with trust. I think his play has been fine. It's just a matter of how the body bounces back when it's not used to something like that, and then
Oh,
going
yeah.
into another game that's going to be extremely, extremely physical between these two
Yeah,
teams.
I'm just saying the conditioning seems like it's not a problem. Like,
I agree with you there. I agree
with
with
a
you.
guy that size, I mean, you never know.
There's also some linebacker depth issues.
Right.
Obviously, now they're down to 2 healthy linebackers, so we'll see. There's obviously the Shaquille Leonard rumors. He was in Dallas today, so there's incentive to bring here. But Cunningham obviously gets hurt. I'm not sure if it's that big of a loss. He's been okay, but I don't think he's been great by any means. But now you're down to Morrow and Ellis at your linebacker spot. So there's definitely some issues as far as health for these Eagles. Let's go to. You have anything else before we do our predictions for Sunday?
No. Just want to shut these Niners fans up.
I don't know if we're going to. Go ahead, give me yours.
I know where you're going with this.
Well, the Eagles will win Sunday if what?
They pressure Purdy. You got to pressure Brock Purdy into making mistakes. The game plan and the recipe should be exactly what it was in the NFC Championship game last year. We knocked him out of the game quick. What was it, in the first quarter? Send pressure his way. Make him beat you. You know McCaffrey, what he can do. You know what Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, they have weapons all over the field. Send pressure. Force the kid to make amazing plays. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. And we have the best defensive line in football, regardless of the injuries in the linebacker position. The secondary looks like it's starting to come together a little bit. I like the way that Sean Desai is using Kevin Byard as a man coverage guy against some of these number 1 receivers, number 2 receivers. I'm assuming that we're going to continue to see something like that. So pressure Brock Purdy, put his ass on the turf, make him beat you.
I have the same thing. I have pressure Purdy and force more than 2 turnovers or 2 or more turnovers. I think that's going to be key. In addition, they're going to have to show up in the first half because they haven't done that in the last few weeks as well. They're not going to be able to skate by against this San Francisco team. That's for sure. San Francisco wins if
they force us to turn the ball over, because we've been losing the turnover battle week after week, and we saw it against the Jets. It only for so long can you overcome losing the turnover battle. And when you're playing an elite team like the 49ers, they're great on all sides of the football. If we're going to have a pick and 2 fumble game, something along those lines, it might just be a little bit too much to come back from not playing at full strength.
I have San Francisco wins if they win the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
The Eagles' run defense has been elite all year, but they showed a little bit of some issues on Sunday. I thought James Cook ran the ball okay. Obviously, Josh Allen running is a different beast because you're not going to get that from Purdy. But I think the Eagles need to win the line of scrimmage, and that's on both sides of the ball, not just stopping the run, but obviously protecting Hurts with that pass rush that San Francisco has. So I think that's important. Let's get to your prediction for the game.
I didn't even write one down. I was going to kind of wait until like where this conversation went to kind of figure out where I was going with this game. And I really just think that Vegas did the Eagles a favor. Not that professional athletes need that extra spark, but I think seeing that the Eagles seeing that they are 3-point underdogs at home. I mean, we know what kind of guy Nick Sirianni is. Like, he's going to have that all over the locker room. I think that that's going to be potentially a little bit extra, go get it for these guys come Sunday. I just think they defend the home turf, man. I really do. I think Brock Purdy hasn't faced a defense like this yet this season. And the last time he faced us, we saw what happened. So give me the Eagles 20, let's say 24-16.
All right. I'm going to stick with what I had in the preseason. I actually had at this point in time that I thought the Eagles were going to go into a little bit of a funk, and I thought they were going to lose this San Francisco game, and the city was kind of going to go a little bit crazy that this team isn't that good. We're not in far as the elite guys in the NFC. We're going to have some trouble, because, again, I thought they were going to be losing a couple games, but they haven't been playing as great the last couple of weeks, and I think this game was going to be a tipping point. But then I thought they were going to bounce back against Dallas next week and kind of right the ship. And I think that's the case. I think San Francisco is a team that, look, they weren't going to win that NFC Championship game last year, even if Brock Purdy stayed on the football field. They weren't better than the Eagles. They might not be better than the Eagles this year. But I think they have a little bit more motivation to come in here and prove a point. And the Eagles, again, are coming off, I said this last week, 3 really tough games. It's San Francisco, it's hard to say this is a letdown spot, but it's hard to get up that many times in a row. I think there's still injury concerns that we talked about as far as the depth on the defensive line. At linebacker, Lane Johnson, we know how big of a factor he is. I think San Francisco comes in and gives it to us this week, and I have them 27-13.
Oh, talk about gives it to us. My goodness.
Yeah, well, maybe if Chris was on the podcast, he could respond and defend himself. But
this would have been a 2-hour segment if he was on with all the reactions he would have had to all your takes.
And I don't think this is saying that San Francisco is a better football team. They're also coming off 10 days of rest. The schedule has not done the Eagles any favor in this spot. I just think it's a bad spot for this team here. And so that's what I'm going with. I think San Francisco buries us. You'll hear on Sports Talk Radio all week about how Brian Johnson should be fired and the team is never ready, da 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 da. I don't think that's the case. I just think it's a bad spot for the Birds this week.
I mean, am I stunned if the Eagles lose? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I did want to say the QB draw to win the game was
thinking that
tremendous call.
Yeah.
Because the Bills were probably like, they've run QB draw 10 times today and it hasn't worked once, so they're not going to run it again.
Yeah, and the way that was set up with sending Swift in motion to the right, you have all your playmakers out there on the right. Half the Bills' defense was leaning that way before the snap. I mean, it was genius. Jalen Hurts was just one-on-one with the defender, and he's going to win that battle.
And I saw Schefter tweeted that Brian Johnson's in line for some head coaching gigs next year.
Yeah, how about
Maybe he's doing a better job than we thought.
Dude, this guy strapped the rocket to this guy. Who's got the Brian Johnson stock?
Yeah, it's crazy as much.
Eric Bieniemy's pissed.
Well, he hasn't really done too much over there in Washington himself, so he hasn't proven maybe a Pat Mahomes disciple.
Yeah.
All right, we got to do our locks of the week. I'm actually changing mine. I rethought mine that I put on the sheet, but let's do our lock of the week. Shout out to you, hit on another one. I had a rough week. I was 1-4, but Thanksgiving wasn't too kind to me. But I had hit 4 in a row on the best bet of the week before that. So hit us with your best bet, and then I'll jump on mine.
All right. While I'm doing that, was I 4-1 last week or 3-2?
You were 2-3, but good try.
2-3. Whew.
Yeah, you lost the total.
Oh, I keep forgetting. Yeah, that I lost that one total by half a point. I thought I won it by half a point.
I was 1-4. The only game I won was the Bears last night.
Oh, that's rough. All right. So my best bet this week, I'm taking the Detroit Lions on the road, giving 4 at the New Orleans Saints. The Lions are 4-1 straight up on the road this year. I'm not sure what they are against the spread, but I watched a lot of that New Orleans and Falcons game for some reason this past week. And boy, the Saints are bad. Derek Carr is bad. You were right about him, Adam. He might be the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
Terrible.
The Lions are coming in off of 10 days rest. They're going to be hungry after a Thanksgiving home loss to Green Bay, and they need to keep pace for that number 2 seed and potentially number 1 seed in the NFC. So I think the Lions just absolutely pound the Saints this week. Lions -4 is my best bet.
So I'm actually going to go to that same game, but I'm not going to be going with the same pick as you here.
Uh-oh.
But I'm not going to be going against you either. I'm going to go with the over 45.5.
Guess said we can't do this.
No, we can. He's not here. He's not here to defend it. I'm going with the over. I think it was the problem was you were just doing it every week.
I like totals. What am I going to tell you?
I'm going with the over 45.5 for the Saints and the Lions. If you haven't watched the Lions the last few weeks, the issue has been their defense has seemingly fallen apart. They gave up, I think it was 30-plus points to the Chargers. Then they go out and give up almost 30 to Jordan Love and the Packers this past week. I think the defense, for whatever reason, is really, really struggling. I don't love the Saints offense, but I think it's good enough to score 20-plus points. And the Lions offense all year has been pretty decent, and Goff is indoors, which I like. So I'm going to go with the over 45.5 in the Lions and Saints.
All right. Well, listen, I think that they're going to put up a lot of points, so I'm assuming we're both going to win this bet.
Originally, I had the Bengals plus the 8.5 on Monday night, and then I rethought that quick. I don't know. You told me not to bet bad teams.
Don't bet bad teams, dude. There's like 23 teams to stay away from this year.
It really, really is. It's such a bad year in the NFL.
It's terrible.
I sent a tweet out. I actually want to bring this up real quick. On Sunday afternoon this past week in the 1:00 slate, outside of Jags Titans, ready?
There was nothing.
Bryce Young, Will Levis, Derek Carr, Desmond Ridder, Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, Mac Jones, Tommy DeVito, PJ Walker. Oh no, that was 4 o'clock. So that was that. That was the 1 o'clock slate as far as quarterbacks go.
Disgrace.
And then you had PJ Walker at 4 o'clock. You also had Aiden O'Connell added to it as well. That didn't even count the Josh Dobbs, Josh Fields Monday night battle.
How does this happen? How does this happen? It's supposed to be
Dude,
the era of the quarterback.
I think we lost so many good quarterbacks at one time. Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, Roethlisberger. I'm missing a couple, but even like prime Russell Wilson is now past his prime. Like Ross was a stud. There were so many good quarterbacks, and there really hasn't been any young ones to replace him. And you add to the fact that we've lost Kirk Cousins, we lost Aaron Rodgers this year. We've lost a handful of quarterbacks this year as well that they weren't world beaters, but they would have at least been better than some of the guys that we got going right now.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a development issue, if that's just that these guys were around so long that like guys couldn't develop.
Right.
I
agree with that. All right, it's time to get to segment 2. This is a segment that we've been trying to do for some time, but there keeps being last week we had the Nola contract noise, and I think the week before that we had something pop up. But for the NFL, after week 2, we did an overreaction segment, and we're now almost 20, I think a little bit more than 20% into the NBA season, and it's time to just take some observations and determine whether or not it's real or it's fake. So I'll actually start out. I took the Western Conference, and I'm going to ask you, and you're going to ask me the Eastern Conference one. So let me start with this one for you guys. The Golden State Warriors dynasty is over, and they are not a threat to win the Western Conference. Is that true or is that false?
That's true. They are not a threat to win the Western Conference. That's not an overreaction at all. They have their worst relative offensive rating, which means their offensive rating compared to the rest of the league. It's the lowest since 2005, 2006, and their defensive rating is the lowest since 2011 and 2012. And now that does not count the 2 years when Clay was out and when Steph was out and there was COVID. They're 8-9. Everyone on the floor except for Steph looks lost. People forget that Draymond Green actually was a very good basketball player during their run, and he's just a sideshow at this point. Clay has his worst shooting numbers of his career. This team cannot space and defend the way that they used to. There's too much competition in the West. But to me, the biggest point is when you look at dynasties and you look at teams that are able to string these championships together. Now let's not get it twisted. Golden State, they had a dynasty run. But it's over, and it's over because they were not able to do what we were just talking about with the quarterbacks in the NFL. They completely whiffed on 2 top 10 picks in back-to-back years in the NBA draft in Wiseman and Kuminga. You needed to be able to get at least one viable starter out of those 2 picks, if not potential all-stars. So that is why we're seeing what we're seeing out of Golden State right now. So that is absolutely true. They are not a threat to win the West.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. The one name you didn't mention is Andrew Wiggins. Looks like a complete ghost.
Yep.
And we're not that far off when he was the second best player on that team that won the title 2 years ago. And he was shutting down Jason Tatum in the NBA Finals. He left for personal reasons probably 2/3 of the way through last year and has just not been able to play basketball since. It's been a complete whiff. And the other thing is, they've had these pieces. You mentioned Kuminga, but it was Wiseman. It was Moses Moody as well, that they dangled as trade chips that had value for a significant period of time. And now those guys, it's a matter of those guys, if they're not helping you at Golden State, who needs it at this point in time, how good could they possibly be as players? Their trade value has dropped significantly.
Yeah, and from what I've watched very little Warriors basketball, but it seems like the Chris Paul experiment is not the spark that they thought it was potentially going to be. The way maybe Matt McConaughey could be if he joined us on the show as a spark off the bench while Chris is out.
True. Paul's been okay as far as a facilitator, but his shooting numbers are way down, which is not helping this team because everybody's shooting numbers are way down. So I agree with you. I think Golden State, the time is passing by. It was a dynasty. Steph is still the man. But the help just isn't there anymore.
Yeah. All right. It'll be interesting to see where they go in the next few years because I feel like Steph has not hit his his run's not over yet. But moving on. So moving to the East, my first question for you, Adam, are the Celtics and Bucks, are they actually better this year than last year? Are these teams better than last year's teams?
Boston, yes. So I've watched a good amount of Boston. They're currently 8th in the league in offense. They're 4th in the league in defense. They have the best record in the NBA. They're 13-4. They do lack depth, which could end up hurting them in the long run, but I do think they still have a lot of their draft picks, and I think they can easily add to that. I think if they're watching them a bunch, Derek White's a better player than Marcus Smart, especially at this point in their careers. And he's been able to log a lot more minutes alongside Drew Holiday. So I don't think that's as much of a downgrade as you think. Even defensively, Derek White is really, really good. We've seen him do things to Tyrese Maxey that other people haven't been able to do. Porzingis is an upgrade over Horford, probably against every team except the Sixers, because Horford still eats our lunch. But not only that, but it allows Horford's playing like 20 minutes a night, which is exactly what he needs before he goes to the playoffs. My only concern with them is there's a Jaylen Brown issue that's lurking. And if you look at Jaylen's numbers this year, he's gone from 26.6 points per game down to 21.4. His shooting has dropped from 49% to 44%. His rebounds are down from 7 to 5. I don't know if it's the fact that Porzingis and Holiday have taken away from him, but I think that's the kind of dude that if he's not getting his shots, it's gonna irk at him, and you're not going to see the same effort on the defensive side of the ball. We already know he's not a great ball handler and a facilitator for his team. And personality-wise, I think he could be a little bit of a problem. I don't see it happening yet, but I think it's something to keep an eye on moving forward because he's not getting the same amount of offensive touches that he once had. But overall, that five of Holiday, White, Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis is really, really good, and it's better than the group they had last year.
So it's funny you say that, you close with that, because all the talk about Boston was not only just the depth, but that they're losing defense with some of these changes that they made this past offseason, because they lost Marcus Smart and they lost Robert Williams III. But I think people forget that when a team has to bust its ass defending all, you know what I mean, all five players in the offensive end, then they're more tired coming back when they're on offense. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Sure.
Absolutely. So I think that's helping the Celtics defensively, because the guys on the court that they're playing against are getting more worn out trying to defend a Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, etc., all at the same time. The Bucks, I'm with you, but when you look at their offensive efficiency this year, yes, they traded defense for offense, but their offensive efficiency is very similar to when they won their championship.
You're talking about Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, yes. So I think that potentially, I think they're trending in the right direction. Now we have to see where that goes come playoff time, because everything changes in the playoffs, as we know. But right now, I'm prepared to say that both teams are better right now from what I've seen.
Here's my issue with Milwaukee. I think they're a work in progress. The question that's sitting out there is Chris Middleton. Like, what is going on with Chris Middleton?
Yeah.
He was 20 points per game for 5 straight seasons. Got hurt last year, played 33 games, and averaged 15 points. This year, he's been on a minutes limit since the season started. It's not a new injury. He's averaging 12 points per game, and I think he's shooting like 23% from 3. Like, if he's shot, I don't know if they have enough, because they use all their trade chips to get Dame, and they're already pretty thin defensively with Malik Beasley starting. Jay Crowder is not the same player he was 5 years ago. So I worry about them defensively. I still think they're really, really good, but I don't know if they're better than the last couple of years' teams. But we'll have to see. I mean, Dame has stepped it up lately. They're still, like you said, they're very good offensively, but they're 20th in defense, which has been their calling card the last few years.
Yeah. And then speaking about defense, don't ever disrespect the glove like that again and call Marcus Smart the glove 2.0. What the best compliment probably that Marcus Smart's ever gotten in his lifetime. I'm
gonna mention Marcus Smart in a little bit in this segment. All right, let me go to my second one for you. There's been 2 really good rookies in the NBA this year, and we got a chance to see one up close and personal. I don't know if you watched any of that game on Saturday. Chet Holmgren will be a more impactful NBA player than Victor Wembanyama when it's all said and done.
I actually really like Chet to win Rookie of the Year coming into this season, just because he had a little bit more, obviously, value. I think Wemby was like minus like 200 or something, and you could get Chet at plus odds. Look, you know how I feel about Wembanyama.
I do.
This is a little bit of a loaded question, but Chet's the same build, so I can't really sit here and put Chet above Wembanyama, given that what I say is that their body type is the reason why they're not going to make it in the NBA. So I'm going to say that's false. I'm still going to take Wembanyama over Chet. But Chet has had a fantastic start to the year. What I worry about is the playoffs. I mean, I just worry about how he's going to hold up when games grind to a halt. It's half court, not as much running. I mean, they're beating up on some bad teams. They've won a lot of games against teams that were not contenders. All of Oklahoma City's losses this year: Denver, New Orleans, Golden State, Sacramento, Philly. I mean, 5 potential playoff teams. So I just think that when it comes down to asking Chet to not only play offense and play in the perimeter, but defend, I think you're asking a lot from him.
As far as Wembanyama versus Holmgren, I'm still going to go with Wembanyama long term, but I think it may take 3 or 4 years to get there. We're golf guys, and I remember I got a question, I guess it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when you had the Morikawa, Hovland, and Wolf trio that came up, and a buddy of mine said, rank them. And I said, Morikawa will be better right now, but Hovland will be the guy eventually. And it's just a matter of he's got to harness it all in. And it also helps that Chet Holmgren is playing with better basketball players. He has better guys around him. That's going to make him look good. They're going to set things up. It's Wembanyama by himself, essentially, in San Antonio. I don't even know. Coach Pop may be losing it. I don't know. He's getting on the mic and yelling at the fans. He might be a senile old man. He got the Belichick going on in San Antonio. So I think once Wembanyama figures it out, and he will be the better player. But I think it may take a little longer than people expect. I think it may be Chet for at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I like the point you made about him playing with a better team is 100% true.
For sure.
All right. This question is gift wrap for you, my friend. Will your Orlando Magic, who currently sit second in the East, will they make the Eastern Conference Finals before Philadelphia?
There's been a lot of Chris shout-outs tonight that I wish he was here. I wish he was here right now because you guys laughed at me when I told you that Orlando was going to be a good team this year.
No, I didn't. No.
Yes, you did.
I had them making a jump. I didn't have them making as large of a jump as you.
So I had them as the 5 seed. I'll be honest, they've surprised me because they've had some injuries. Fultz has not played very much. Wendell Carter, who I love, has been out for 3 weeks, and they're still doing it with a top-notch defense. So the question is, who will make an Eastern Conference Finals first? I'm going to still go with the Sixers, but I don't think either of them are coming anytime soon. Orlando is still missing a few key parts. Bancaro's good. Franz Wagner's very good. They're coming into their own, but it's still not a market to get another star player. Here's why I'm going to go with the Sixers. Because with the emergence of Maxey and the coaching of Nurse, they have a couple pieces in place there. I am still not buying Joel Embiid as a top dog. And we're going to talk about, I think you have a Sixers question for the last one, are you not?
Yes,
you did. So we'll save some of my thoughts for that. But they also have the James Harden pick, which is gaining value by the day as far as that Clippers 2028 first round pick that's unprotected. There's a road, and it's not that far off that pick's a top 5, top 7 pick. And I'm not saying that they have to wait to use it then, but that pick's just going to gain value as we go down the road. And there's an opportunity for them to get another top dog with that pick, depending on how fast they want to move. That's why I'm going to take the Sixers to get to an Eastern Conference Finals before Orlando. But I don't think it's coming in the next 2 or 3 years for either team.
What are you going to do when it's Philly and Orlando in the Eastern Conference Final? Then we're going to see your true colors. You're going to be like Hogan coming down and dropping the leg on your Sixers jersey.
Listen, I'm proud of that Orlando team. I watch them a lot, man. They play hard. The other day I was watching Jalen Suggs got a steal. It was the 3rd possession of the game. He dove on the floor for a loose ball. They threw it down the floor. They got a dunk. He's pumping his fist, dude. That team plays really, really hard. They're a good watch.
There is, and I think it's because we're Philly guys, where like there's a certain like it's so fun to take a team that's in the basement and follow them and then watch them rise up the rankings. It just brings you a certain joy that you don't get when you're watching a team that's meant to contend and expected to contend for a championship.
You remember I did that with the New Jersey Nets for a while.
No, you took them at the top. You took them when they made the finals. Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin.
You're fucking lying right now, so let's move on. All right, my last one for you. The big 3 of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker will play less than 20 games together this year.
I went through every game. They have not played a game together.
They have not played a game together this year.
Yeah, so this is not an overreaction. It's going to happen. They're not going to play. They might not play 10 games together. I think it'd be crazy to take a bet where they're playing 10 games together this season. Where, as you said, about 20% of the way through the season, Beal's only played in 3 games. Booker has 9. Durant has 15. Beal's out for at least a couple more weeks with his back injury, this nerve injury that he has. Durant's got feet issues, and he has humongous feet. So this is like a real problem. Booker's got calf and foot and toe issues. All 3 guys have injury history. They never play full seasons. At this point, I just feel bad for the season ticket holders. And I think the real question is, will these guys get it together for the playoffs? Should they make the playoffs?
I mean, they're dangerous at some point. I watched a video of Bradley Beal shooting. This was before he came back the first time, and he looked like he was crippled when he was shooting.
Yeah,
You've had back injuries. I've had back injuries. If it's recurring and he's already back on the shelf, that's not a good sign for them. You mentioned Durant's injury prone. Look, with Devin Booker on the floor and Kevin Durant on the floor together, they can do whatever they want, even without Bradley Beal. But they're still not good enough to beat the really good teams in the West. But I think they can still win a series, even if they don't get enough playing time together. But with just Booker and Durant, they gotta have those two on the floor. I don't know if Beal's that much of a needle mover for me.
Is this the season where my man Book finally puts 100 on the board?
He's the man, dude. He's
so good.
He's still the most underrated player in the league because he's probably top 8, and people don't even recognize it.
And you could probably argue top 6.
Yeah, you really, really could.
Like that just goes to show the underrated, like how underrated he is.
He's right up there with Tatum. Like him and Tatum are right on the same level.
I got him above Tatum, dude. Book is such an assassin, man.
Tatum's really good too, dude.
All right, let's close it out. Philly does not need to make a move this season to make it to the Eastern Conference Final.
And Matt McCunney is following us in the chat. We are missing the speed and decision of which Joel is playing this year. Hey, Matt, newsflash. I don't give a shit about what Joel Embiid does in the regular season. I've seen it time and time again that come playoff time, he gets pushed around. And let me tell you what Joel Embiid is. And listen, I love the Sixers to death. I love them so much. And I respect Joel and what he does. He's a bully. He's the bully in school that when he sees Miles Turner, when he sees DeAndre Ayton, when he sees Anthony Davis, who doesn't want anything to do with contact, he's going to go in there and he's going to push his way inside and he's going to get buckets and he's going to go get 30. But when he sees Al Horford or
the upperclassman
or somebody who's going to punch him back, he's going to curl up in a little ball. The Marc Gasols that punch back, he's going to curl up in a little ball like he always does and put his head down and give you bad body language. That's what's going to happen. And until I see otherwise in the playoffs, I'm not buying it. He's an extremely talented player. He's one of the best, most talented guys in the entire league. When he gets it going like he did last night, when he shoots 10 for 15 from the floor with 11 assists, 11 rebounds, it's a beautiful thing to watch. But let's not get real. I think he's shooting like 49, 50% from the floor. Like his numbers from the floor are not very good this year. So it's not like he still takes too many bad shots for a big man that could get inside easily.
But Adam, the difference for me this season with Joel is that Nick Nurse's offense is a lot more predicated to him being a passer and a facilitator with that motion and the movement and the cutting that we see when he gets it on the elbow and at the top of the key, which we never saw with Doc Rivers. So you're not necessarily relying on Joel to be that 35, 40-point guy because he's getting you 11 assists, which I have to imagine was that a career high, the 11 assists? I mean, and you also have to take into account the true shooting percentage because he's getting to the line how many times and he's knocking down high 80% free throw percentage.
But we say this I know we haven't said about the passing, but we say about the free throw shooting every year. And like come the playoff time, it's the same story. And like, again, he's throwing the ball well, but when defenses start game planning and pressuring him, do you trust him to not turn the ball over when there's 4 minutes left in the game and we're down 4 and we need a basket?
I think it's more about I trust Nick Nurse to utilize him in a way where we're not relying on him to put his back to the basket, to make these decisions and to be playing ISO ball against guys like Al Horford who have shown the ability to shut him down. It's not so much for me a Joel Embiid thing anymore. I just have Nick Nurse has shown me a lot in this first fifth of the year.
Me too, but the coach can only do so much. But let me get back to the question. The question was, the Sixers do not need to make a move to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. The answer is true and false. They're not making the Eastern Conference Finals even if they make a move.
Jesus.
So, again, Joel Embiid's a 46% career shooter in the playoffs. His points per game dropped by almost 4 points per game, despite playing 3 more minutes per game. This team needs an alpha. They need a guy who can go get his own bucket. And I've been seeing it with my own eyes that Joel's not that guy in the playoffs. I don't think Tyrese Maxey's ready to be that guy at this point in time. There's still defenses out there that show the ability to take him out of the game. So the question becomes, and this is where we talked a little bit earlier, is they have these assets from the James Harden trade, and what are they going to do with them? Are they going to go in this year and find a supplemental piece to plug in, whether it's an OG Anunoby, a guy that we talked about earlier that I said we want to hold up? Is it a Marcus Smart that we could put alongside a Tyrese Maxey to supplement the ball handling? Is it someone along those lines where I don't think that's enough to get us past a Boston or Milwaukee? Or are we saving these picks to go down the line when they garner more value? And can I bring in a Donovan Mitchell in the offseason? Somebody who can go and get me 35 points, or if he gets on a heater, give me 40 in a playoff game. A guy who, I'm not ready to call Mitchell an alpha, but he's closer to an alpha than what else we have. My only exception to this rule would be, is there a world where the Clippers move Kawhi Leonard?
So you're swinging for the fences.
I'm not saying I think they need to swing for the fences. And I don't think that if you acquire, it's been proven year in and year out, as we've talked in the past, acquiring a superstar at the trade deadline does not work in that year because of all this stuff that needs to come with it as far as getting used to playing with each other. I don't think we've seen a team acquire a major player and win the title since the Pistons did it with Rasheed Wallace. It was almost 20 years ago.
I think we're only a couple depth pieces away from potentially getting to the Eastern Conference Finals.
So let's put it on record. You're in on Joel. You're ready to take all your Joel hate that you had last year. I heard you on the podcast calling him whichever you called him. You were anti-Embiid for a long time. I want you to put your stamp on it that you're in. You're a Joel guy.
Seltzer, they do it every year to me. Every year.
No, but last year you held strong for a while.
This year's no different. And then the season started.
No, I remember at that Houston game last year, we ripped him. And Chris defended him, and we said that we're just not going to get it done with this guy.
I even ripped him this year when he was doing the crotch chop.
Yeah, you did. I will say this.
No, listen, I still need to see it, but I'm more confident that he's going to show it this year than I have ever been.
I will say this. I wish I had the exact numbers. The one thing that has impressed me about the Nick Nurse, besides the offense, is the Sixers have gone from a team that I believe was 26th in offensive rebounding last year, and they are now 4th. And I think Joel's played a huge part in that. He has made a considerable effort to get on the glass, and I think that's something that we've seen that he hasn't done the past few years. We've criticized his rebounding big time, and I think he's done a lot better job of that this year. So I'm going to tip my cap, and hopefully that continues, because he had 4 offensive rebounds last night, and there's no reason he shouldn't be doing that on a nightly basis. And adding Covington just gets to loose balls. He's all over the place. So I think the rebounding improvement has been the biggest thing for me as far as, the next step for this team. But we'll see.
I know it's a lost art form, and it's tough to get grown-ass men, professionals to do it, but they're boxing out. They're simply getting bodies on bodies in the paint, which they never did under Doc. They would just stand there looking instead of turning to see where a player was and just simply getting in their way. I'm seeing a lot more boxing out this season.
I have one more thing to say, and I'm just going to be a compliment for Joel to show. I can show both ways. I've criticized him, and one thing that I've said is I don't think he's made players better, with the exception of the JJ Redicks and the Seth Currys, the guys who can take the dribble handoffs. From what I've seen in LA so far, I watched the end of that game last night. He made James Harden a lot better, because James Harden is toast.
Yeah.
And thank God we did not give him any sort of contract extension. He has nothing left in the tank.
I'm embarrassed at how happy I was. Remember after Harden's first game, dude, I can show. I got texts that I gotta burn people's phones because we were talking about championship after that first game. Man, it was embarrassing. It was tough.
It was. I mean, it was the right move at the time. I'm not going to knock anything like that. We traded Ben Simmons.
It was a move 3 years too late.
Sure, absolutely. But Harden was still playing well in Brooklyn. You remember the year before he was good.
I mean, as far as getting rid of my boy Ben.
Oh yeah, they could have got so much more for him, but Ben's still finding a way to collect checks without playing ball.
The luckiest man.
To him. All right, so that was it for the NBA segment. We're gonna have a lot more Sixers talk coming up. Good, they played well, 12-5. A couple more tough games, New Orleans and Boston this week. So we'll see. I mean, listen, I'm very happy with the way they play. Their style of play is so much more entertaining and watchable than it has been in the last few years.
Absolutely, dude. All that movement instead of all that just dribble ISO.
Absolutely. All right, it's time to get to segment 3. I'm gonna let you lead it off because you've come up with something. I'm not even in the know of what's coming here.
Yeah, you're totally in the dark here. So I put a couple ideas out there on the dock, and you highlighted 2 things and said, "Let's do this one." So
I just meant that paragraph.
So I picked one of the 2 things, and we're gonna play a game called Start, Bench, or Cut. Basically, just kind of a way to rank the 3 things, but you're telling me, which one you like the most, which one's going to be on standby, and which one you're getting rid of. Now, I have a few that I've come up with. I have about 8 or 9. I have some sports related. I have some non-sports related. Do you want to pick which one you like to start with here?
Let's go. Let's start with sports. This is a sports podcast.
So let's start with sports, and the sports related ones are all Philadelphia sports related. So we're going to start with an Eagles start, bench, or cut, and it's on the offensive line. I got Jason Kelce, I got Jordan Mailata, and I got Lane Johnson. Who are you starting? Who are you benching? And who are you cutting?
I think this one's easy.
So before you answer, my son Jackson, out of nowhere this past week, comes up to me and says, "Dad, who are the most important, the 3 most important Eagles in order?" I'm like, where'd you get this question from? What are you talking? We haven't talked about this. Where'd you get this from? He's like, well, who are they? So I go, number 1, Jalen Hurts. And he goes, wrong. What do you mean wrong?
He said that?
Yeah. I'm like, well, you're wrong. And he's like, no, number 1 is Lane Johnson. And I'm like, who told you this? Who was the one that fed you this information that you're sitting here? You didn't know who Lane Johnson was a day ago. So I know Jackson's answer would be he would start Lane Johnson, but I'm curious to see where you go with this.
I'm with Jackson. Jackson's a smart kid. Look, I'm not going to pretend to be a offensive line guru who watches the trenches like Chris does. But their record without Lane and their performances without Lane in the past have proven time and time again that he is the most important person on that offensive line. So I'm going to go with Lane. I'm going to start. You got to bench Kelce because he's a future Hall of Famer and the heart and soul of that team and that offensive line. And that just leaves Mailata, who's obviously been really good, but he's still got to be the third in that 3 to be, I got to cut him.
No more Christmas albums. No more songs.
The voice of an angel.
Yeah. All right. That's tough. We're actually on the same page. And for me, it's because Kelce's just too much of a leader. To me, you start Lane. That's pretty much inarguable. But I could see you taking Mailata over Kelce if you wanted to argue it because the left tackle position is so important. And at the end of the day, Mailata is still a top 5, if not 3, left tackle in the league. But Jason Kelce, man, nobody gets out on a pull like him.
You can't cut Kelce.
Yeah, you can't do it. I mean, you're cutting the heart of the team if you cut Kelce. That's like getting rid of Kyle Schwarber.
Plus, he's in our industry.
That's exactly right. Oh, and guest wants to stay on this paternity leave.
Maybe we bring him in.
Once this season ends, we'll see what we can do. Pull some strings.
The 4 of us. We'll call it four in the I don't know, me, you, Travis, and Jason, and maybe we'll get Taylor Swift and we'll skyrocket.
Listen, we might be getting our walking papers if that's the case.
Things just got exciting quickly here.
Yeah, we'll just pick up the residuals. All right. Second sports related, also Philadelphia related. This is tough, man. You got 3 plays. Okay. You got the Philly special. You got AI stepping over Lou, and you got Bedlam at the bank.
Oh.
Start, bench, cut. I'm not even going to answer this one.
Oh.
So again, that's Philly special, AI stepping over Lou, and Bedlam at the bank.
Oh.
Tough. You know, and I want to know what guests would say because you and me, we said time and time again, we admit that the Eagles are our number 3. But
Yep.
I think what makes this tough is that the Philly special is the only one of those 3 plays that help lead to a championship.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. I have to start for that reason. I have to start the Philly special. It's the only. Jesus. I was going to say it's the only play that's iconic, but it's not. They're all iconic.
They're all iconic.
But it's going to be the only play that gets a statue. So you have to go with the Philly. Even though it didn't win the game, it was the quintessential play in that game that'll be remembered at least. So that has to be the start. I have to go Iverson crossover as the bench because, again, it was the championship. And it didn't win the game in that moment, but it sealed the game.
Yep.
So it was pretty much a game winner. And then you have to go Bedlam at the bank, Harper's homer, which was – that's so hard to say I'm cutting that because that was just unbelievable. And I remember him stepping to the plate and my dad saying, wouldn't it be cool if he hit a home run? And you just felt it coming, and then he hits that ball to left center field, and we go to the World Series. But, God, those are 3 really, really great plays in Philly sports history. So I got to put it in that order just because it was an NLCS and not a championship series.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try to find a way to put some kind of poll up on the Instagram account and the Twitter account for that one because that's tough, man. You talk about could those be maybe the 3 best plays? I mean, could you replace Bedlam at the bank with Lidge striking out? Who was it?
No. I think if you're replacing it, you're maybe like the Utley backhand play where he throws home.
But even that doesn't get the it's not written in Philadelphia lore the way Matt Stairs is.
Yeah, Matt Stairs was going to be the next name that came into my mouth. The Stairs homer or the Victorino slam, but they're not on the same level of the 3 that you talked about.
No. Yeah, I think those are the top 3. Maybe you know what I mean. There's something in the annals of history that we don't know about from the 80s.
Hoskins homer is more in line with those secondary ones that we just said. That's in that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if we can ever figure out how to do like a bracket, this will be a bracket we put together at some point.
I actually would love that idea of a bracket.
All right, so our next sports related, it's our last sports related. You're a golf guy. I try to be a golf guy. You got to start, bench, or cut. Par 3s, par 4s, and par 5s.
All right, well, the easiest one is I'm cutting par 4s. Par 4s suck because you got to hit 2 good shots to make a par for the most part. I am going to – that's hard. I'm going to start par 3s. Because par 3s can be the most picturesque holes, in my opinion. You can get to one, you put it over water. You have the island greens on some holes. Just walking up to a beautiful par 3, seeing the green, seeing the pin, the thought of possibly getting a hole in one. Only takes 1 really good shot to make a birdie. Yep. That's always a big factor. Par 5s are next in line just because they're scoreable holes, and you can hit a bad shot and still get away with making a par. So I got to go par 3s, par 5s, then par 4s.
All right, we disagree slightly there. I'm starting par 3s for basically the same reasons you said, and the biggest one, you took the words out of my mouth, is it only takes 1 good shot to potentially make birdie or at worst par on a par 3. For a guy of my skill level, where getting off the tee box has become an absolute nightmare, par 5s for me are getting cut. Because I understand people that say, you can recover from a bad shot on a par 5. I can't.
You can't recover if you hit a bad one on a par 4 either.
But some of those par 4s are short when you're playing from the white tees like I am. Like if you're talking about like a 290-yard par 4, I'm good with that. I can go iron wedge and get to the green. But a par 5, man, every par 5 I walk up to, I'm like, Jesus, here we go.
Here's 7.
Here we go. Yeah, so I'm benching or I'm cutting the par 5s, benching the par 4s, and I'm starting the par 3s. All right. We're gonna move into food here. So I got breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Breakfast is the bottom. I'm not a breakfast guy at all. Matter of fact, I've started the intermittent fasting again because, as you can tell on this live feed, it's getting a little chunky in the face since the babies come. So I'm eating at like 11 to 7. I'm skipping breakfast altogether. I'll probably go dinner first and then lunch second. So start dinner, bench lunch, and then cut breakfast. I'm cut breakfast.
We're in agreement. I've never been a breakfast guy. When we were in high school, I never ate breakfast ever.
Yeah, me either.
College, I never ate breakfast. As an adult, I've come to find these overnight oats that you put them in they give you like a shake bottle. What's it called? I can't even think of the name of it. But you put the milk in, you put the oats in, you shake it up, you leave it in your fridge, and then the next morning you just drink it on your way to work. And it's got like 400 calories, like 30 grams of protein, and they're pretty good. So it does a good job of keeping you filled until lunch. Because to me, breakfast is just like a necessity. I don't enjoy it.
Don't get me wrong. I'll dabble with a bagel or a donut here or there, just if it's there. But I can go without it without question.
Yeah. All right, we're on the same page again, there, man. We need a third. We need a third guy for these.
Yeah, because Chris would have said like brunch.
Yeah, he would have said some crazy stuff. Man, where's dessert? That's what don't disrespect dessert. All right, so next on the food list, and I mean it's all personal preference, but you talk about 3 iconic foods, especially party foods, and in the Philadelphia area, I got wings, pizza, and cheesesteaks.
I knew you were on there. All right, so the last few I've started with the cut, and again, this is an easy cut for me. I'm going to go with wings as the cut.
Ooh,
I like wings, but there's a. This is hard because I can say this about all those things. Wings is the toughest eat because it's a little bit of a mess. Sometimes you don't feel like dealing with the bones. You get the chicken meat in your mouth. It's stuck in your teeth. And a lot of the issue with the wings is the sauce that you get. Right? How many times have you ordered wings and you're at a restaurant and you're like, I've never had that sauce. Let me try that sauce. And you get it and it's not that good. And it ruins the meal.
See, to me, that's what makes the wing great, the versatility of the sauce.
But for the pizza, I'm going to go pizza number 1. I could eat pizza every day.
Oh, I see. I'm not in that boat.
I can eat pizza every day. I love pizza. You can give me Elio's. You can give me an Alex's.
Yep.
Number 1 pizza in the area. You can give me the anything you want. I can eat almost any pizza.
The Mama Celeste.
The Mama Celeste. So I'm going pizza number 1. I'll go cheesesteak number 2. Love a good cheesesteak, but not as much as pizza. You a whiz guy or you an American guy?
I'm either one. And I actually, when I go to gyms right down the street, I get both.
Really?
I go American and whiz.
You go double cheese.
Double cheese, American and whiz, fried onions, mayo, salt, pepper. It is I might go get one after this is over because my stomach's grumbling a little bit. I didn't eat that much for dinner. I'm trying to not a diet, but I'm trying to cut back a little bit after the holiday weekend. I might have to get a cheesesteak.
Yeah,
cheesesteaks are my start because cheesesteaks to me are the most delicious of the 3.
Yeah.
Like a great cheesesteak trumps a great set of wings or a great pizza. And the only reason I'm taking pizza as my bench is because it's a must. We get it every Friday. It's no brainer. Like you don't have to do any prep or anything. You just go get the pizza. You plop it down. Everybody loves pizza. Everybody loves it. But wings are easier than pizza.
You've had Angelo's cheesesteak down the city?
Not in a long time. Not in a long time.
If you go down the city, you got to get one. That's the. I
think I might have been like 10, 11 years old the last time
No, I wasn't even around back then.
I was thinking of a different place then.
Yeah, no, Angelo's is by Palumbo Playground in South Philly.
I'm definitely thinking of a different place.
It's the best cheesesteak I've ever had. It's not close.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've never been there then, obviously. How long's it been around for?
10, 12 years maybe.
Okay. Now I'm thinking of when I was a kid, I went to a lot of random places here and there. With like when I be out with my dad or whatever, making trips.
Yeah, no, it's I'm gonna send you. I'll send you the Instagram so you can see the picture. It's a must. It's not close. How good that cheesesteak is.
All right, let's go two more and then we'll wrap this up. And we might go three depending on your answer, how quick this one is, because I know you're not much of a video game guy. So if this is a quick one, we'll do one more. But I got PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. And I'm talking about all systems. So you get, PlayStation 1 through 5, you get Xbox 360, 1, 2, and then you get all the Nintendos.
So this will be pretty quick for me. Xbox is the cut. I've never had an Xbox. Never been an Xbox guy. Never could get the vibe of the controller when I went to somebody's house. Just couldn't figure it out.
The original Xbox controller was shit, but so was Nintendo 64s.
Nintendo 64 was shit, but I had that, so I got used to it pretty quickly. But that was a strange controller. Agreed. But I'll go PlayStation first because I was a PlayStation guy. Still have always been a PlayStation. Actually got back into the PlayStation over COVID. Only got NBA and PGA, but dabbled back into the video game scene for a little bit there. And that leaves Nintendo in second spot. Nintendo 64 is a great system.
Yeah. So many classics, dude. GoldenEye, Mario Party, Mario Kart.
Ken Griffey Baseball was a great
NWO one. Revenge, WrestleMania, No Mercy.
Yeah, there were so many good games for the Nintendo 64. Mario Kart's still a classic. But I've always been a PlayStation guy. I think I had at least 1, 2. I think I had 1, 2, 3, and 5. I don't think I got 4.
You're saying you got a PlayStation 5?
I don't know. What's the most recent one?
PlayStation 5.
No, I got a 4. I bought a 4 over COVID. I'm sorry. I've had 1, 2, 3, and 4. Though.
I was gonna say, look, you little gamer.
No. PlayStation's probably the GOAT.
I went through phases. So obviously when we were kids, PlayStation and Xbox didn't exist. So if you don't take Nintendo, like you're saying goodbye to all the Marios, all the Zeldas. I mean, I was into all those games.
So I do have a confession for you to make. So last year for Pollyanna with my sisters, we all put our names in a hat with us and their boyfriends or whatever. And you had to pick a gift. I think it was like $50. And they had this like little Nintendo that had come out. And you didn't get the games, but it stored the games on there. And it had like 200 games. And I asked for it and I got it. And it's a piece of shit. Like the games barely work. The games on there are terrible.
And
even like it's bad.
I got something similar to that for Jackson prior to getting him the Switch. This was like 3 years ago. And it's like a USB stick and you pop it in your TV. But so like he liked it and it had a ton of games. It had all the games you knew. My problem with it was the controller had like the slightest millisecond of lag. Just enough to throw you off when you're playing Mario or you're playing Mega Man, like these games that like require some, you know what I mean? Like the precision. So for me, I couldn't do it, but Jackson loved it.
It's a good point.
After he got the Switch, he would still play it.
Mine came with 2 controllers and one of them didn't even work.
Oh yeah, that's shit.
It was terrible.
To finish up, I went through phases. I had a PlayStation all through high school. So I mean, obviously the PlayStation, you had all the Maddens. I mean, that's more than enough right there.
Madden was the best.
I was a Final Fantasy VII guy. I know that the nerd in me is coming out. But then after that in college, kind of went back to 64, which I also had in high school because in college we would play Nintendo 64 all the time. And then after college, I got the Xbox, and I think it was the Xbox 360. And dude, I've logged many hours playing NHL, playing Grand Theft Auto. That was the last system I had was Xbox.
So you guys don't have that anymore. There's no video games outside of the Switch in Ryan's house.
Yeah, just the Switch.
Okay.
So with all that said, dude, I think PlayStation's getting cut for me, and I think I'm going with probably Nintendo starting out of respect, and then Xbox on my bench.
That's the first one we really differed on.
Yeah, PlayStation just had the shortest stint for me. Again, it was all the Maddens, but not much else outside of that. All right, here's we'll wrap it up with this last one. I said I went through all the sports ones. I lied. I have one more sports related question. So we just talked a lot about the Eagles, the Sixers, their success this year. And a lot of it's been predicated on the coaches. So we have Nick Sirianni, we have Nick Nurse, and we have jolly old Saint Nick. You got to start one, you got to bench one, and you got to cut one. Are you going to cut the big guy?
Well, after the story last week, if you listen to segment 3, you seem to be able to just get rid of that jolly Saint Nick, and you can replace him pretty easy because they're running around the streets.
We're talking about the genuine article Saint Nick.
Listen, I'm starting my man Nick Nurse because that's my guy. I'm in on Nick Nurse. I seen him go over and give Jalen a big hug last night in the middle of the game. You see that?
Nah. Oh, yeah.
Jalen, the game was going on. He went over and gave him a big hug. So shout out Nick Nurse. Then I'll go jolly old Saint Nick. I'll bench and I'll cut Sirianni. As much as good as Sirianni's been, he still pisses me off. He's another one with his facial expressions, his demeanor just drives me up.
You don't like him, but you like that dork McDaniel down in Miami.
I like McDaniel because listen. I just think I don't necessarily like McDaniel. I think he's a good coach. I think Sirianni's a good coach. I just don't like him. That's two completely different things.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that you just sealed your fate. You're not getting any gifts this year. How are you going to bench Santa?
You're starting Santa?
You got to start Santa.
You're just disrespecting the sports fans and our clientele.
You got to start jolly old Saint Nick. He's the GOAT Nick.
What about Nick Foles?
I sure. There you go. But
Big Dick
he
Nick.
didn't fit the mold as a coach. Jolly old Saint Nick is a player coach. I'm starting him. You gotta keep Sirianni. You can't get rid of Sirianni, and you gotta cut Nick Nurse. You have to, because as far as title aspirations, the Eagles are closer.
Nick Nurse was my guy in Toronto, so I gotta stick with Nick.
You wanted him.
I did want him. That was my guy. I thought he was a fantastic coach there, and he's done a great job since he come over.
Well, as I said, I hope you don't want the gifts on your Christmas list too much because you're getting skipped. That's it.
All right, we're gonna wrap this thing up. Al, I'm gonna give you plus 350 odds that Chris is on the podcast next week. Are you taking it?
No, I'm out on that. What's him not on the pod? Minus 700?
Minus 820.
I'll lay it.
I'll lay it. Chalky.
I'll lay it.
Well, if you've been following our picks this year, there's a good chance that Chris is on the podcast.
I got a new best bet.
Yeah, absolutely. But shout out to the guest family. Shout out to all the families. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. And we will see you next week. Let's drop that beat.